There are quite a few videos on the internet talking about how great and sophisticated today's fakes and replicas are. Well, today we have one here, and it's not a super fake, whatever that means, but it is not a cheap one either. The person who agreed to provide this creation for review paid almost $200 for it, plus a tenner for a genuine replica box. No papers though. Well, we've got the box. And we've got the watch, and the spoiler alert, it isn't pretty. So are fakes really that good, or are we in for a bit of a reality check? And what do we get, or more accurately, what don't we get if we actually buy one? Well, in this video we'll find out. Hello and welcome to the channel. A quick disclaimer, we are in no shape or form support or promote fake or replica watches on this channel. The information in this video is for entertaining and educational purpose only. With this out of the way, let's get on with the video. This is not going to be one of those 3 or 5 or 10 reasons why you shouldn't buy a fake or replica watch. I might actually do one of them in the future though. However, I thought it would be useful to share what you get if you actually do buy one. And not least interesting, at least from my perspective, what is the economical or commercial bottom line of this type of purchases, which I will of course discuss in this video. There is of course a flip side to this ugly coin. This might not be the best copy out there, however it might not stop some fraudsters from trying to sell it as genuine. So hopefully this video will arm you with some useful information and knowledge to help you not to fall victim to such a scheme. So, a few months ago, a colleague of mine, let's call him Steve, after finding out about my watch channel, told me about the replica watch that he bought purely out of curiosity. Well, according to him anyway. He wasn't sure what to do with it. At that point, he couldn't sell it, he couldn't fix it, it wasn't running particularly well, which is kind of an understatement. You will see what I mean when we put it on a time graph later in the video. And hence, it wasn't running really well, there was not much of a point wearing it. So, Steve offered to provide it for this review for the sake of sharing his experience of getting into this type of transaction. So, let's briefly talk about the price and buying experience. As I mentioned in the beginning, this particular watch cost about $200 plus a tenner for the box, which we will of course examine in a moment. From the perspective of purchase experience, well, this might come as no surprise, but the seller vanished within days after the purchase, and as a matter of fact, my colleague almost kissed his $200 goodbye, and it was quite a surprise when the watch turned up on his doorstep a couple of months later. As you can imagine, with the sellers, there is no particular point, or most of the time actually ability, to provide you with any good sales or after-sales experience. And that is for a couple of reasons. First, this type of sites or listings, if they actually manage to get themselves listed on big selling platforms, are usually policed by the brands that they're trying to copy and, of course, by the platforms themselves. And second reason, and that might sound slightly controversial, it is actually not in the seller's interest to stick around anyway. The after-sales service is an expensive thing to offer. You need to communicate with your customers, you need to resolve their issues, you might need to take the return and actually give their money back or repair the issue and, of course, provide some kind of warranty. All this costs money. Packaging and promised specifications. So here is the so-called AAA box for $10. I've seen a real genuine Heuer Aquaracer box and it looks nothing like this. Also, the box was kinda DOA or dead on arrival. It literally survived one open-close action and then the hinges snapped. This was quite interesting according to my colleague Steve, sort of a disposable one-off box. In the box we've got a cushion of slightly unsavory, should I add, pinkish color, and of course the watch. I double-checked with Steve what exactly he was promised, and it was 1-to-1 AA clone of Heuer Aquaracer 43mm model, model number WAY201A. I'm not sure what AA is supposed to mean, I guess as opposed to AAA clone. Further, it should have had 120 clicks ceramic bezel, of course, sapphire crystal and Asian 2824 movement, whatever that means. My guess is because of the 2824 numbers, there is a hint that this is somehow mimics ETA 2824 and possibly, or at least, will have a bit of 28,800 vibrations per hour, so we will see later. And of course, goes without saying, a 316L stainless steel everywhere, including bracelet. Dimensions. Let's take a closer look at the dimensions now. Because this watch is supposed to impersonate a 43mm Aquaracer, I will put a genuine dimension on the screen for reference. Diameter is 43.8mm, which is kind of close. The lug width is 21mm, lug to lug is 50.5mm, which is also close to the expected size. However, if we look at the height of the watch, it is almost 15mm, which is substantially more than the expected size. From memory, Aquaracer has a fairly slim case, even the version with the mechanical movement. Actually, it is one of the prominent points of the genuine Aquaracer, which allows a 43mm diameter case slide nicely onto the cuff and be okay in the office and in outdoor environments. But back to this watch, the case height is a dead giveaway that something isn't exactly right here. And not only does not look right, it also manifests in a very top-heavy watch. This watch, adjusted to Steve's just over 7-inch wrist, weighs about 162 grams. I'm not sure how much a real Aquaracer actually weighs, so if you know, please let us know in the comments. Dial. Well, dial is actually executed quite okay, at least if we inspect it with the naked eye. Of course, if we look under magnification, we can spot some irregularities. However, viewing this watch in isolation, that is, without a real one side by side, it might be a bit challenging to spot a fake. However, there are a few things that can help us to see if we are dealing with a genuine watch or not. First one is not very pronounced, however, it is easy to identify if you know what you're looking for, and that is the length of the second and the minute hands. Both are a bit shorter than they should have been, about a millimeter or so shorter than on the genuine. On the genuine watch, the second hand just reaches the minute chaptering, while on this watch we can see there's clearly a gap. The second giveaway is a bit harder to spot without a genuine watch side by side, and it is the yellow accents. On this watch, the yellow color is more subdued compared to the real watch. And the third one is a bit easier, and it is the lume. Lume on the genuine Tag Heuer is pretty good, while on this watch, frankly speaking, it is rubbish. Crystal. Now, if you recall, Steve was promised a sapphire crystal, which, to be fair, at $200 price point, and taking into account that this is supposed to be a flat sapphire crystal, which are generally a bit more economical to produce compared to, let's say, a domed one. So, taking all this into consideration, getting a sapphire crystal on a $200 watch is not unreasonable at all. Well, let's have a look what we actually get here for real. By the way, this, at the first glance, sophisticated tool only costs about £10, and as you can see, it can spare you from a multi-thousand-dollar mistake. I will leave a link to the video in the description where I cover a few such ineffective tools that can be very useful and at the same time are quite low-priced. So, and yes, or rather, no, it is not sapphire. There is no reading there whatsoever. So, if you did this test on your own, this would be pretty much a 100% guarantee that you are dealing with a fake. Also, if we look at the date cyclope, it is well aligned. Not perfect, but okay, and it maybe looks a bit on the small side, however, it is not big on a genuine watch either. So this is again one of those differences that will be quite difficult to pick up without a genuine watch side by side. However, if you think that the cyclope looks a bit too small for the overall proportions of the watch, this could ring alarm bells and could be a good reason to investigate further. Case. Moving on to the case, we have stainless steel construction, brushed top of the case and mirror polished flanks. The finishing is okay, at the first glance looks fine and there are no rough or sharp edges. It is not that simple, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with various watches at various price points, to determine how good or how bad is the finish on the watch case. So this is less likely to be a determining factor to identify a fake. However, if you are familiar with how the original Tag Heuer case should look, seeing that something is not right should be quite easy. Like this case is disproportionately thick. We have a screw-down side crown, which does look somewhat close to the original, although crown operation is quite rough. Looking at the back of the case, we can spot a few problems here as well. First, it is protruding way too much. With the case being already quite thick as it is surprising why the back case bulging so much as well. Then the writing and engraving on the back case. The engraving is a bit off. The diving helmet is actually not perfectly round. There is something weird about it. And the second clue that something is not right with this watch is the model numbers quoted on the back. XWA-Y208C. This may be some kind of existing Tag Heuer model. If anyone watching this knows, please let us know in the comment section. However, it is definitely not the model number related to the watch that they are trying to copy here. As far as I remember, the model number on the 43mm Tag Heuer Aquaracer with the black dial caliber 5 movement is WAY201A. So, I cannot emphasize enough, do try to learn as much as you can about the watch that you're going to buy. At very least, know the exact model number. Bezel. Right, this is an interesting one. It does look ceramic, however, this is where the good news ends. First, the color. It is of a light gray color, which doesn't work 100% with the black dial. And then the bezel action. This is probably the worst bezel action I came across. It has a very odd number of clicks, 100 as I counted, and not 120 clicks as Steve was promised. Then there is an unacceptable level of backplay. In terms of alignment, well, because of such a large backplay, we can twist this bezel any way we like, so there is no actual alignment to speak of. Movement. So Steve was promised an Asian 28-24 clone movement. Well, the movement, according to Steve, only ran continuously for about 2 weeks. Then it started stopping at random intervals. And that's when this watch became pretty much unusable. So let's put it on the time grapher. Right. This is interesting. To be honest, I haven't seen a movement performing like this before. From what I see, it probably should not be running at all. And it is clearly not a high beat 28,800 vibrations per hour movement. Let's open it up and see what it really looks like inside. Well, this looks like one of those very cheap movements. I'm pretty sure I've seen this sold online for about $15 US. Brand new though, in a full working condition, of course. And again, as a comparison, here is the watch, which cost $47 US, and it has a see-through back case, so we can actually see the movement. And by the way, this budget movement is not only much better decorated, it is also quite accurate, and it does beat at 28,800 vibrations per hour. I will leave a link to this watch review in the description. Bracelet. At the first glance, the bracelet might look like a point where this watch could somehow redeem itself. However, let me reassure you, it is not the case. Starting with the end links, the finish is slightly different to the finish of the case, and it is noticeable at close inspection. Then, the end links. Even though these are inverted end links, and inverted end links are generally is a positive sign, especially on a watch larger than 42mm in diameter, these end links are very poorly designed. Steve told me he had to sand and file them down on the inside so the bracelet could articulate freely around the end links. Let me show you what I mean. The bracelet links simply could not bend down, and after sanding them down, the bracelet still gets stuck under them. Now, let's take a closer look at the shape and finishing. On the genuine Aquaracer, the links are chunkier and they taper in thickness towards the clasp. We of course have nothing of this sort here. On this watch, the links are all of the same thickness, starting from the case all the way down to the clasp. And on the genuine, the sides of the end links are polished, and as we can clearly see here, these ones are not. Now, if you remember in the beginning, I did mention that Steve was promised 316L stainless steel all around, and even though it is very difficult to, almost impossible to identify stainless steel grade in home conditions, this bracelet is so light and teeny, I doubt it is made of stainless steel at all. It is very lightweight, and this makes this watch with already disproportionately large head very top heavy. The same applies to the clasp. It kind of looks alright at a distance and even has a diver's extension. However, at close inspection, it is very thin and teeny as well, which results in a lot of jingle and rattle. So, here you go. What is the financial or any point in buying this type of junk? Well, personally, I think there is none. Let me explain. First, there are quite a few high-quality watches that are there for approximately the same price. And I have San Martin here as an example, which costs approximately the same but does have sapphire crystal, full quality stainless steel construction, good, accurate and robust Japanese movement, and one of the best bezels in the business. And of course, a very good customer service and support who do stand by their products. Now, if you're really still after Tag Heuer aesthetics and you still don't want to spend a ton of money, there is of course this Pagani design PD1668 watch, which does have all bells and whistles and cost about half the price of this watch at about $90 US. Then, of course, by adding extra 100 or couple of $100 to the price of this junk, we can buy a real Swiss-made reputable Tissot, Citrino or Hamilton watch, which are robust and reliable and will serve you for years to come. And finally, a genuine second-hand Tag Heuer Aquaracer, if you look hard enough, can be found for about $1,500 US. Yes, it is more than $200, however, because a second-hand Tag Heuer already absorbed big chunk of the depreciation of the new watch, chances are that if you look after it, you can enjoy wearing a real Tag Heuer Aquaracer that you actually wanted. Well, that's an assumption anyway, and you can then sell it on, if you so desire, for little or no loss, which of course we cannot say about this watch. Here, $200 went straight into a rubbish basket. So, here you have it. If you find this review helpful, hit that like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next one.